Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Bukola Dada. I work at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau within the section for students and young consumers as an outreach specialist. Our webinar today is focused on helping students achieve financial success. As I mentioned, I'm with the section for students and young consumers at CFPB. And within our section, we focus on creating tools and resources to help students and families make more informed financial decisions about paying for college, managing money, and repaying student debt. There are a few of our resources on the slides at the end of this presentation, so you'll be able to access our tools and resources at your convenience. Before we get into today's presentation, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. If you look to the right of your chat screen, WebEx screen, you should see an option for a chat. You can use the chat feature to enter any questions or comments that you may have throughout this presentation. We will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation, and we will try to address as many questions as possible at the end of today's presentation. Next, as a federal employee, I have to give a disclaimer that you see on the screen. And it reads, this webinar is being facilitated by Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It is intended to It is intended to provide information about student loans. The topics discussed do not represent the Bureau's policy positions. Any opinions or views stated by presenters are the presenter's own and may not represent the Bureau's views. Nothing said in this webinar by a Bureau representative constitutes legal interpretation, guidance, or advice of the Bureau. Okay. Today's presentation will focus on resources that are geared toward helping the students you serve achieve financial success in their post-secondary school years. Our speakers will provide information that will help students finding a program that's right, using the College Scorecard, and we'll hear about some of the great work that's being done in the Office of Workforce Investment pertaining to helping students access career and job information, along with getting scholarships. And then we'll hear from my colleague here at the Bureau as she gives a presentation on the Your Money, Your Goals Toolkit. We have three great presenters scheduled for today. Our first speaker today is a Program and Management Analyst at the Department of Education in the Chief Data Office. That's Brian Few. And then we will hear from Maisha Meminger. She's the Manpower Analyst for the Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration and Youth Services. Then we'll hear from Jill Wheeler, our Special Populations Advisor in the Office of Community Affairs here at the Bureau. They all have great resources to share with you all, so I will go ahead and turn things over to our first speaker. Brian?
Thank you for the introduction. This is Brian Fu from the United States Department of Education. I'm glad to be here and share this resource with you. College Scorecard is a consumer information initiative. These are data that are out there to help prospective students and their advocates essentially select and shop for institutions of higher education. I just wanted to note that I'll be walking us through what's called the consumer website, which is really our featured product, which provides a subset of data metrics. But I also wanted to note that underneath that website lies thousands and thousands of data fields that people can dig into more if they're interested in that. And you may also see other products out there that are powered by either College Scorecard data in combination with others. So just wanted to let folks know that even though you're not looking at College Scorecard website, you may be looking at College Scorecard data. How do I access College Scorecard? The URL is pretty easy to remember. I think it's just collegescorecard.ed.gov. It's free. It's accessible through desktop and mobile browsers, and it's also available within the My Student Aid mobile app. For those who are not familiar with that, that's part of the federal student aid package of resources. So when you're filling out your application, for example, your FAFSA, you'll have access to that mobile app. I'm just going to jump right in now and show you what happens when you actually click on collegescorecard.ed.gov. We start with a very simple search page where you can search by name on any institution that you're interested in. Also, we provide different ways to search. For example, if you want to search by graduation rate or average annual cost, location is one of our most popular search items. And for those who are, starting from scratch and maybe don't have a great idea, there's always this Show Me Options page, and which you can kind of select broad categories to start your school search. Once we enter in a search queue, you'll see a page like this, which has these cards of all the institutions that met the search criteria. On the left side, you'll see more ability to refine and filter searches. But essentially, these cards provide three big pieces of information, which I'll talk a little bit more about in detail as we move through the presentation. But that's graduation rate, salary after completing, and average annual costs. I'll just imagine that you're searching through here and you click on one of these cards, and what you'll find is an individual school profile. So for each individual school profile, we see the name, of course, of the institution front and center, well, front and to the left, I guess. The location, the number of undergraduates, and the URL, so you can actually go to the website of the institution. Here we have, and underneath it, we have three of our key data points. Again, I'll reiterate: graduation rate, salary after completing. Salary after completing is presented here as a range. So what you'll see is for individual fields of study, there's a median earnings value that's calculated 1 year after graduating. And so, for example, at this hypothetical school, North-South College, the lowest field of study for which there are data for generates $21,000 the first year after graduation. And if you were to hover over this 69,000, it's very small, but imagine you're hovering over the larger number, you'll see like a pop-up here. For example, the computer science bachelor's degree will represent the highest earning undergraduate credential field of study combination that's available. So what you're getting is basically a range based on what you're studying. The last bit of information is the average annual cost. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but this is sort of our header information. And then what you'll find is collapsible, we call them accordions because they're collapsible, but essentially accordions with information about more detailed topics. So imagine that we're just going to scroll down here, and we're going to scroll down to the average annual cost section. So average annual cost is an important topic, I think, because it doesn't necessarily reflect just tuition or just living expenses. It's actually the sum of all of those costs minus any grants or scholarships. So this $19,779 represents the average costs after grants and scholarships for all of these elements of cost, including tuition, living costs, books, fees. You'll see that by family income, the average annual cost varies. So for students with a family income of $0 to $30,000, the average cost is substantially different than the cost for those from families of $110,000 and above. Roughly $10,000 difference on average in these cases for those two groups. I will note that there's a button here that allows you to go to the institution's provided personal net price calculator. So if you know more details about exactly your situation, you can click that button and actually have even more precise average annual cost for this particular institution. Imagine now we're scrolling down and we go to the graduation and retention rates. So this is providing us the graduation rate. The retention rate is the number of students who return or graduate within their first year. And for those students who are interested in knowing particular subgroups, how they do in terms of graduation, that's offered below here. So sometimes, for example, it takes part-time students longer to graduate than full-time students. Sometimes those who transfer in with credits can graduate faster. So this provides information on how many students graduate, transfer, and withdraw. Imagine now I'm scrolling even further down into this profile and opening up these what I've called accordions before with more information. This is information about student loans. And this is an important contextual piece here, this upper left-hand corner, which provides the number of students who actually get federal loans. For example, in this hypothetical situation, about a fourth of students receive federal financial loans. And that's important context for understanding how much loan is taken out upon graduation. So again, what we see similar to earnings in a range. So for example, if I were to hover over like this lower number, that indicates that the lower number is associated with sociology bachelor's degree, perhaps a different field of study on average produces higher amounts of debt upon graduation. So you have this range of numbers. In this case, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but it's about $8,600 and $24,000. We convert that to a monthly loan payment just to give students, prospective students, a sense of how much that's going to cost them after graduation. Of course, there are lots of different payment options, so this is kind of just one scenario, but please note that there's different ways to pay back your loans in different types of plans that are beyond the standard 10-year repayment plan. Now, I'm going to keep scrolling down. Imagine I'm opening up more of these accordions. Before I mentioned that we just have the ranges, and that's kind of how we show in summary for the different fields of study that students may select, what their typical earnings and debt will be. Here we can actually look at all of the fields of study that are available to students. And if you imagine we click on one of these, we can figure out, we can really see, we can open up for one field of study the exact earnings and debt values. So for example, on the left, we sort of just see the top fields of study, and we can sort of order by largest size, highest earnings or lowest debt. And on the right, we see we've expanded one of those fields of study, and we can see for that particular field of study how many, the number of graduates per year. We can see the typical median debt and the typical earnings 1 year after school. Just wanted to note that I kind of showed this. If you see, there's College Scorecard is primarily a tool for undergraduate students, and all these data that I've showed you so far relate to just the undergraduate population. But I did want to note that if you want to see all fields of study, which is this green button below, we do have some of the same information for graduate schools, graduate fields of study. So here's one example of an accounting and related services master's degree. And I'm just going to continue to scroll down. So the program, the field of study information is sort of the next, what we call accordion, expandable accordion, where you can find information here. If there's also like a section or an accordion on student body that can be expanded. When that's expanded, you can see the number of undergraduate students, the proportion that are full-time, part-time, and some of the demographic information as well. The last accordion or section that I'm going to show you is about test scores. So we have, this is essentially shows where half the students land in terms of SAT and ACT scores. We also have an acceptance rate, so prospective students can get a sense of whether they'll qualify for admissions in a particular institution. That's essentially the profile. One other thing that I'll note that is that we have, when you're searching each of these profiles, there's a little button on the right where you can essentially, it's kind of like if you imagine adding something to a cart. You're not actually purchasing anything, but you're just adding a particular school to a list. And with that list, you can compare up to 10 different institutions. So for example, here's one with, here's a hypothetical comparison of 4 different institutions. And I didn't show all of the data elements, but I think this will give you a snapshot to see that you are able to, with this tool, compare side by side individual data elements. With that, I'll just say that if there's any questions, this is a great resource, College Scorecard data at rti.gov. That's essentially our help desk. I'm also happy to field any questions after this or whenever that's appropriate in this webinar. Really appreciate getting an opportunity to present this resource to you today.
Thank you, Brian, for that. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Maisha Meminger, and I work for the U.S. Department of Labor, Division of Youth Services under the Employment and Training Administration. I have the pleasure today to share with you our tool, getmyfuture.org. This tool was started to be created in 2014 and actually launched in 2017. Under the Workforce Investment Act, under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act of 2014, there has been more of an emphasis at the U.S. Department of Labor to serve out-of-school youth and those youth that have the greatest barriers to full employment, full education and training opportunities. These are young people who may be parenting or pregnant, homeless, parents may have been in court involved, or they are involved themselves. And we did know through research that most young people have cell phones. Now, what we do know across the board is most young people don't keep their cell phone numbers, so many of us who have programming do have a challenge with follow-up. But we do know that young people have access to phones and some to computers. And so what we wanted to do at the Department of Labor is to make something that was friendly for them, youth-friendly, and approachable for them to use. And we came up with the idea of making a web app that allowed them to work and find out what their opportunities are and how to get to those opportunities. So again, in 2014, we had 6 focus groups around the country. We targeted young people, talked to young people who were in justice. They were foster care youth, homeless youth, and runaway youth. We asked them their opinions on what they needed to get from point A to point B, what resources made the most sense. We did that for about a couple of years, and then we launched this tool, getmyfuture.org. In 2017. Again, it's not necessarily an app, but it's very mobile friendly as well. Through our research, we found that, again, 80% of young people have phones. So getmyfuture.org has a great wealth of resources where we pull from a lot of our federal partners resources. You're going to hear some information again that Brian just talked about. But it's a great tool. It has 9 major components, and I would like to walk through these with you all today. To share with you what we have available at the Department of Labor and how we connected with other agencies on their resources as well. So first, we are the U.S. Department of Labor. We want to make sure that young people know about careers that are available to them, and especially in-demand careers, those demand-driven occupations. So in getmyfuture.org, there is a wealth of updated career exploration tools, as well as videos that accompany a lot of the top jobs in our country. And it kind of asks questions about what are you good at, what do you like to do, what are your interests. We use a lot of this data from ONET data and also other types of assessments that young people and actually adults take, but we try to make it more youth-friendly and more bite-sized. We have an assessment, interest assessment. We take over 100 questions and we make them into 30 questions, 30 bite-sized, chunk-out questions that young people can say extremely interested to dislike. This is a fun assessment to take. I encourage everybody on this phone to take the assessment. It's a lot of fun to see that you pretty much are in the job that was good for you, or you need to find another thing to do, because everybody that I have take this assessment like, oh my goodness, this is so me. So if a young person at 16, 17, 18, 19 takes this assessment, it kind of gives them an idea of what they may want to do when they're older. But most importantly, it's youth-friendly. It gives them easy-to-read results, right? So what are you best at? What are the jobs that you may be best at? It gives them a list, and also, most importantly, it tells them how much money they could potentially make in that area. Also, a lot of times when we work with young people through the WIOA funds, these are the hardest to serve young people. A lot of them may have this detached from traditional schools, and a lot of them want to know a lot of times what is I don't want to say the easiest, but the straight line forward way for me to get employment and have a job I can take care of myself and or family. Also, again, we talk about hourly wages. What's the projection of the job? How does that job look a few years from now? Also, because a young person may run their zip code, it also tells you what's the projection of that job or that employment in your area. So again, we want them to know what their interests are, what they may be projected to maybe work in some areas, and also what's the likelihood of them growing in that area as well, and how much education they need. And again, we not only do exploration, but we do connect them to videos that will pop up around those areas that they may be interested in. And I want to emphasize, I did not emphasize this in the beginning of my presentation, these resources are free. These are taxpayer dollars, and they're for everybody's use, all citizens' use. So therefore, there are some private companies that have very similar sites. Some states or some grants may pay for program, but these are free, and these are pretty much updated from BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics data, as well as education data and our data as well. So it's a very great tool to use if you are looking for this tool for young people who come into your program. So we talked about education, right? So we want to make sure that, again, if you're fresh out of high school, if you need to go back to school, what does that look like? What are the resources in your community that can also help drive you towards more education for yourself? If a young person clicks on the link that says high school equivalency, this may mean that this young person may not have a full diploma at the time. So this links them to resources at their state and local areas on how to get a high school diploma or a high school equivalency. So we want to make sure that young people are connected to the proper education. Also, what is your high school equivalency options? Again, every state is different. Some states take the GED. Some states no longer take the GED. So there's options here that allow young people to know what are their options to, again, expand their education and knowledge. How do you pay for school? This is exciting for us. So we want to make sure that our young people not only have information on potential careers and jobs in the future, how much money they can make, but also the path to get there. And a majority of the jobs that we're going to have in our country in the next 10 years are going to require post-secondary education. That does not always mean four-year education. And at the U.S. Department of Labor, we strongly want to encourage people that if they don't want to go to four-year school, that is okay. Community college is amazing. And we are definitely a proponent of apprenticeships and on-the-job learning and training. So that's also counted as post-secondary education and training as well. So again, paying for college, let's see how that works. So again, every young person normally has a FAFSA account to the Department of Education. They fill that out. But not only that, but in this tool, we have a scholarship finder. And this makes me so excited because you're able to go through the scholarship finder and put in different aspects of what you need or what you're interested in. And our scholarship finder will find you scholarships in your area. These tend to be public scholarships or state scholarships. And young people can click on it and apply through the site. It's also free and it's protected. A lot of times our young people, they sometimes may not understand scholarship instructions. Sometimes scholarships, I tell young people, if it's not free money, it's not good money. Scholarships are supposed to be, you don't have to pay to get a scholarship. So some young people I've talked to in the country have been forced to pay for information or give out personal information. That's very dangerous for our young people. So we want to make sure that we give them clear guidance on how to apply for different scholarships. So this is a wonderful tool that we have the federal government. College Scorecard, thank you, Brian, for sharing that with us. We also are connected to the College Scorecard. So when a young person runs a job or wants to look further into education pertaining to a career, it'll also list educational institutions in that area where that young person lives or is close to. So maybe an out-of-state university or college, but it may be close to them because they have their zip code or their city and state in there as well. It also connects to the College Scorecard. Again, Brian gave us a great presentation on those tools and those usages of the scorecard to know how much money it costs, what other institutions are at that school or other ideas and majors. And so this is a great tool to have as well for a young person that is looking for their, again, expected outcome. So we talked about careers, we talked about education, how to find money for education. And again, we also, if you want to talk about get work experience or get work documents, we have tools to help young people write their resume, tools and tips on how to find work in their area. So if you click on work documents, we go through some tools and some tips on young people getting work documents in order to work. We have here at the Department of Labor something called youthrules.gov, which provides employment rules for young people who may be under the age of 18. Every state has different rules depending if it's agricultural work, if you could be 14 or 15, if you could drive a tractor. And so every state has different rules. So we always refer folks there as well as use getmyfuture.org. For WIOA, if you enroll in WIOA and you are an eligible young person, any of these documents that you may need for work can be paid for through our services at the One Stop Center. A lot of young people that we do work with are missing a lot of these critical documents for various reasons, may have been lost, may have been stolen. And so if this is going to prevent them from working, when they become a member, then they enroll in the WIOA youth program, these are documents that we work very diligently, case managers around the country work really very diligently to make sure that they have. Also, we have tools in here about finding support. So a lot of times when we're working with our young people, again, they have barriers to employment, education, housing, food insecurities. They may have several struggles in their way. And so we want to make sure that we are also a clear support for social and supportive and counseling services. Under WIOA, we have 14 program elements, and of those is supportive services. So we have information about Chafee dollars. Those are dollars that young people who are aging out of foster care can access. I believe at this time it's still up to $5,000. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me in the chat. If a young person, it says, again, you have to have these factors and if you are a young person aging out of foster care, you are guaranteed this $5,000, and that money can be used for education and training. And that's what we would like our young people aging out of foster care to have, because a lot of times there are linkages to guardianships and parents and families. It may be a weak tie, and they don't get that support. So those Chafee dollars are there for them. We have information on Chafee dollars, and also just a toolkit on where to find additional information and resources for young people. And they can play on there as much as they want. They ask questions. We're there to answer those questions. We have people on careeronestop.org that can answer some questions for them. And again, business finance, they can also find employment, summer employment, as well as regular employment through these sites as well. So again, Service Locator is our one-stop career center site. That is where you can find your local American Job Center, as what we also used to call One-Stop Center. Workforce GPS is a resource I want to share with you all. It's our community of practice. This is where we have about 40 different communities on different issues and topics regarding workforce development, anywhere from business engagement to labor market information. You can join this site for free. Sign up for as many communities as you would like emails from. As items are updated, you will get a ding on your email, and you will get information for money, event information, research information. And we at the Division of Youth Services, these are the 6 communities that we are in charge of. But again, Workforce GPS has over 40, and you can join as many as you would like. And I would encourage you all to make sure you are part of our Workforce GPS community. We're taking questions at the end, and so I want to make sure that I give you guys our email address. That's youth.services@dol.gov. If you have any additional questions for me outside of this call, but I am available for questions afterwards, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And I will be turning it over to, who's next? Jill? Is that you? And that's my son saying, yeah, Jill. You next, Jill?
Yes, that's right. This is Jill Wheeler from the Office of Community Affairs. I'm hoping you can hear me very clearly. If not,
we can hear you.
Chat.
We can hear you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, the organizers and all the participants. I can see we've got a great number on the call. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all today. And I wanted to speak to you about some of the additional Consumer Financial Protection Bureau resources that we hope will be useful to individual students and to practitioners, college counselors, career advisors, parents, and others who are advising and serving students. In the Office of Community Affairs, we focus on developing tools and resources to empower consumers and the practitioners who work with them day to day. When we talk about financial empowerment, we mean not only building and understanding the content, but also the confidence to make decisions and use the knowledge, skills, and tools to make decisions, choose financial products and services that work for a person given their unique financial and life situation based on their own needs and financial goals. So we know that paying for college brings up so many intense and difficult decisions around financial choices. We wanted to provide an overview of some of the tools that can be helpful in laying out those choices. Our suite of materials is called Your Money, Your Goals. And in the chat function, I just sent the link so you can take a look at these materials online. The materials that I'll be presenting were originally developed for use by frontline social service staff or practitioners, people who are meeting regularly with clients or consumers, people they serve in a variety of settings. Many are social workers, career advisors, counselors, sometimes legal services, people who are meeting typically in a one-on-one setting with the people they serve. Some of these are simple handouts and kind of one-time informational materials that could be used to discuss and take away. Others are booklets that can be very helpful for people who want to work through a series of topics or are meeting with someone and working through a series of action plans and steps around financial issues. Our core central resource is the Financial Empowerment Toolkit. And I want to emphasize that the approach to these materials, they were developed on the ground with a lot of rigorous testing and input from people using the materials in the field. And the real goal of these materials is to provide a non-judgmental approach to helping people really lay out the options, understand the information, lay it all out on paper, so that then based on their situation and their values and goals, they can make the choices that are best for themselves. So the toolkit itself is available in an online version and a print version. All of these materials are free and available to the public. You can download them from our website, or you can order free copies of the print materials. There's a link on the website. They can generally be ordered in batches of 25 to 50 copies. And so you'll see the information. I'll share the address again at the end of my presentation. The Financial Empowerment Toolkit is a really thorough, comprehensive set of information addressing a wide range of common financial topics, ranging from savings to paying bills, tracking income and spending, looking at debt, credit issues, financial products, preventing fraud or financial exploitation. And there's also a module on goal setting that can be really helpful as people are planning for the short and long term. Some additional materials are the issue-focused booklets. These are small, kind of spiral-bound, the size of a paperback book, that are really good to highlight a specific set of tools around 4 topics. One is behind on bills, one is debt getting in your way, one is about credit, want credit to work for you, and one is on building your savings. I'll mention many of these resources are available in multiple languages as well. Behind on bills and want credit to work for you are available in Spanish. In addition, we have some companion guides for special populations using examples and specialized tools for Native communities, the reentry community, or people involved in the justice system, and people with disabilities. I'll highlight a few of those specific tools toward the end of the presentation. I wanted to jump right in and give you an example of a particular tool that can be really helpful for basic overview of financial planning. So starting with the income tracker, and this is a visual from one of the booklets. So looking at tracking income to really get a picture, a total picture of your income and the available financial resources. It's really helpful for people who are trying to keep track and remember when all of your funds are coming in and thinking about how to plan expenses and avoiding gaps in ability to pay. So here, I would highlight this tool is also available online. You can download it, and it's a fillable PDF function, so you can plug in specific amounts in each area. It has auto-calculate functions, so you could either save it as an electronic document or print it out to use later or to take home. The income tracker, one thing I wanted to highlight is that inflows for students may happen in very large chunks or sporadic amounts during the year. So for the student context, you may want to look and print this out for all of the months in a given semester. So here you could plan it out, for the full semester, thinking ahead. One of the notes I wanted to make is that often people can get confused about net income or gross income and the impact of taxes. And what we really recommend is when you're filling out this tracker, this is something that you can use to really look at the net amount you will have that's coming into your bank account at the end of the month, or at the end of the pay period. So once all of the taxes are taken out, these are really the amounts that you have available to spend after any fees related to loans or any of those details that may affect the final dollar amount you have in your pocket. So again, we create this form with lots of flexibility, so you could print it out month by month. You might have one primary job, there might be multiple jobs. These tools can be used for people, and recognizing students may be coming from a variety of settings, so they may be receiving other benefits from government programs, disability benefits, financial support in terms of financial aid, loans, scholarships, additional sporadic family support. So here we include several sections for people to write it in. And what we find is that doing this on a week-by-week basis helps people really see what will they have available in any given week and what will be available at the end of the month or for the full month overview. The next tool, which is certainly closely related, as people are planning their budgets, we need to look at both income and spending tracker. And for students, especially students who are just beginning college or entering a new program, it may be really tricky to anticipate the wide range and timing of expenses that could come up during a semester. So here we have the spending tracker to help people track both their past spending for the month, make sure they really think through all of the details of where their money is going in a typical month, analyze that spending by category, identify areas that they might want to cut back on or look at more closely, and setting some goals to keep on track. And so here, for students, an important piece, and for advisors, an important part of the role could be helping to anticipate new expenses related to school supplies, school transportation, or different items. Again, it's important to look at not only the month, but the full semester. So you may identify, in addition to all of the standard kind of daily life expenses, there might be, in addition to basic school supplies that come up during the semester, you might want to keep in mind expenses looking ahead. If you're a senior getting closer to graduation, sometimes you'll be required to purchase the cap and gown, and you want to be able to plan ahead and be able to have a plan for paying for any important but unexpected expenses that arise. So one point I want to highlight on the spending tracker is that you'll see we put in a standard range of categories. We use symbols as prompts to try to kind of use universal symbols that may be helpful to get people thinking, that may be appropriate across a variety of languages and cultures as well. You'll notice in this tracker, the first expense is cell phone. Then we have debt payment, eating out, a variety of other groceries, health, transportation, and others. And in our training sessions, we often ask people, why do you think cell phone was listed as the first expense? And the answer, we get a variety of answers, all compelling explanations, but the simple answer is cell phone just comes first alphabetically in this list. So we recognize, this is a range of expenses, types to spark your thinking about what could be included, but there's no value or judgment on what is more important than another. We recognize that all depends on your situation, your priorities, values, and needs. So here in this spending tracker, a couple other categories I would like to highlight is that from past work experience working with interns, I've seen that sometimes interns have been paid on a 1099 where their taxes are not withheld, or people may be receiving payments in a variety of settings where the employer is not necessarily withholding the taxes. So it is important to keep in mind, especially in certain months of the year, that there may be additional tax obligations that are due. So that's where advisors, parents, and others with financial experience over their lifetime can be really helpful in help laying out all the expenses to consider in the tracker. So now I will go on to another really popular tool that we've been finding can be really useful for a variety of consumers. So as we take that weekly and monthly income and expense flow, ultimately what's often most challenging for people is the immediate week-to-week of, do I have enough money or will I have enough money when the bills are due next week? Or how does it fluctuate month to month, especially when sources of income or support may be coming in big chunks across a series of several months. So here we have a tool that you can download and fill in and use online. That's the week-to-week cash flow budget. So here we have the beginning balance at the start of the week. How much do you actually have available in your pocket, in your wallet, in your bank account that's available to spend? We can add in any income we expect to receive that week. It might be from a couple different jobs. Some may be fortunate to have some family support. A scholarship or loan may come in a certain week, and there we can add in the different sources of income. At the same time, below that, and this will automatically fill and calculate in the online form, we can subtract all of the planned weekly expenses. So as we do this for a month, from 1 week, we pull the balance up to the top, And we can notice patterns in when do we have a little more or less, or when will there be real gaps in our funds that we need to plan ahead and find other ways to cover. Another tool that is pretty standard but can often be really helpful, especially in really hectic times like we're all living in now, where we have so much on our mind and it's hard to keep track of all of the different details of bills coming in and when they're due. So the bill calendar can help to get a total picture of the monthly bills, plan ahead to identify the weeks when you have money, the most money available, when you need to pay your bills, hopefully avoid late fees by remembering when those bills are coming up. So here again, you can fill in, work with someone month by month or for the full semester to list out all of those regularly occurring bills or unanticipated expenses and put them in day by day. Now, some people like to put this right out on a refrigerator or a public area so they can really see it regularly. They know what's coming up and they don't forget. For others, we could recognize that can be really stressful and see people being very creative in sort of how they adapt this, keeping it in a backpack, a purse, a closet, a bathroom mirror that they check occasionally but might not be out in public view for people who are sharing spaces or find that to be very stressful. So now I wanted to cover briefly a topic that we hear so much interest in and see a lot of interest in learning more about credit. So here, credit, we often hear the word bouncing around. In the current coronavirus pandemic, we've seen a lot of people interested and concerned in how economic changes are affecting their credit, what will happen if they do or don't pay certain bills, and occasionally identity theft or concerns that are affecting people's credit and they find they need to take action to correct their credit reports. So I'll cover a bit of that as we go along. So here, just stepping back, and when we hear the word credit, we want to look at how it connects to debt and student debt and other financial terms and issues. So just to highlight, credit is really the ability to borrow money and repay it later. So that debt that we may have is money that we repay when we've used credit. So it is possible and important to keep in mind you may have a source or access to credit available without having incurred debt. And so just because credit is available, which can often be very appealing and exciting to some new students, that does not necessarily mean we want to use that, and we want to make sure we understand how that use of credit will affect other steps in our financial life. And we do recognize there are an important number of resources on our website as well around access to credit, and recognize that many people, many students do not have access to credit. So I'll talk a bit about how you can build credit, build a history and gain access to credit or correct bad credit. So here I wanted to just touch on credit reports and scores. So why do credit reports and scores matter? We hear about them a lot, and students may have a lot of questions about really what that means for their future. And credit can have a really immediate effect on job opportunities, costs, and other aspects of life. So for example, employers might review credit history when a person is applying for a job. So poor credit could make it harder to get certain jobs. For some jobs, including military positions or certain government positions that require a security clearance, a credit check is part of that process and can affect job opportunities. It can certainly be reviewed and can have an impact on ability to get an apartment, to get insurance coverage, and it will, in many cases, affect the amount of deposits that are required when getting a new utilities account or getting a cell phone plan. It can affect the terms that you pay and the rates you pay on those plans. It can certainly affect your ability to get a credit card, and then all of these costs and credit history can affect your credit score. So here is a simple visual to give an overview of how those terms and connections around credit connect. So as a person uses credit, that will create a credit history. So that could include, credit cards, student loans, audit loans, other expenses will create that financial or credit history. All of that information, as we know, is now gathered by many different sources, and the credit bureaus, the 3 national credit bureaus, compile that information into credit reports. And then those reports are ultimately used in a variety of ways to calculate credit scores. So that information that's built into the credit reports and ultimately the score calculations, as you have a higher credit score, that can help to get better loan terms, better interest rates, or access to better, larger amounts or different amounts of credit. Moving on to the next example, and I wanted to give an example of a traditional FICO-based credit score. So there's a variety of ways that different specific companies calculate this credit score, but this is an example based on the traditional FICO model. So here you'll see the pie chart divides up and shows how much different categories affect your credit score. So starting with the payment history, which is in this model 35% of the score. The payment history tracks whether you're paying bills on time, which this creates the biggest factor in the FICO score. Paying bills late, not paying bills at all, or having bills that go to collections will likely cause your scores to drop. Paying on time can help to increase your scores. The amounts owed in the bottom portion of the pie chart, 30%, the amounts owed really tracks what you owe, including any debts you're paying down over time. It also includes the credit utilization rate, or how much of your available credit you're using. The length of your credit history will have an impact. So the longer that you've had a financial track record of having a loan, repaying that, that will have an effect. And so in some cases, for a person trying to start and build a credit history, it can be helpful, if it's managed well, to open a card and start establishing that long-term history. So by the point a person is ready to apply for a mortgage, there's a track record that can be seen over a long period of time. And then the types of credit that reflects the mix. So the companies look at, does this person only have student loans, or have they also successfully managed an auto loan, a credit card, a mortgage, the variety of types of credit. And then new credit looks at the number of new inquiries and how active is a person in obtaining new credit. So moving on, as I mentioned, the full set of the booklets on the Your Money, Your Goals resources. This is a kind of a screenshot showing those 4 booklets, including Behind on Bills, the booklet focused on debt, one on credit, and there's also a booklet on savings. And the savings booklet is fairly new and really focuses on savings in a wide range of contexts and with a wide range of goals. So there's some tools focused on beginning to build an emergency savings reserve, small amounts over time to prepare for emergencies. For others, people may be looking at long-term goals, buying a car, buying a house, so a range of goals and savings resources there. For the booklets, I just wanted to give a more specific example of the credit booklet. And as you'll see, each of these booklets has 8 tools, or around 8 tools. In this case, you'll see the overview table of contents highlights the range of issues. For advisors or service providers, you may look at the different categories to see that the yellow categories are really helping people take those first steps in getting a copy of a free credit report, or making sure my credit report is accurate, or understanding how to get errors in my credit report fixed. Some of the mid-range tools highlighted here in the blue and green help people plan and take actions to build credit, improve scores, or decide when to use credit. And then red tools are designed to help people address immediate challenges and needs. So for example, if I've been a victim of identity theft or knowing who else to turn to for help. We have a number of those referral resources in each of the booklets. Here's just an example of a typical tool related to credit scores. As you'll see, you can fold out the page and they typically have an action plan to look at, here's some background information about my credit score, here's some actions I can take, and here are some notes that might apply for my particular situation. And as I mentioned, many of the Bureau tools and resources have referrals. We try to refer people to other government agencies and other unbiased sources of support. So there are links to credit counselors, coaches, other different resources to understand or deepen their information and deepen sources of support. Finally, I wanted to just briefly touch on the Bureau's role in the complaint function. So as you may know, the Bureau, our overarching role is to educate, empower, and enforce the laws. And so if this tool is available for individual consumers, or you can file a complaint on behalf of someone you're serving or on behalf of another person. On the Bureau's main page, which is consumerfinance.gov, up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a button to click on for submitting a complaint. And if you have tried to resolve a complaint about a financial product or service and you're unable to resolve that issue or think the company is not following the law, you can submit a complaint here, either online or by phone. And that's, as I mentioned, the website is consumerfinance.gov, and the phone number, which is accessible in over 150 languages and for a variety of settings and people with disabilities, that phone number is 855-411-2372. The complaints also gives us insight into trends. You can find some interesting tools to see what's happening, other complaints or trends in your zip code or state. And if you file a complaint around any products, there's a list as you dig into that complaint function on the variety of topics, including loans, credit reporting. You can submit a complaint and the Bureau will help work with you and the company to get that complaint resolved. So now just to wrap up, I wanted to share our website again for these individual tools and resources, the Your Money, Your Goals website, consumerfinance.gov/yourmoneyyourgoals with hyphens between each word. And then we do have a number of ongoing training opportunities, webinars, and if you are interested in joining the email list, you can email us. Our team address is yourmoneyyourgoals@consumerfinance.gov. So I hope this is helpful. I'll be available for questions, and I will turn it back over to the organizers. So Bukola, I'll turn it back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you all for such a wonderful presentation. I learned a lot from it, and I really hope that our audience has as well. Before we wrap up, as I mentioned earlier, I do want to take a moment and just highlight some of our CFPB resources. The first one we have here is the coronavirus webpage, and it's frequently updated with consumer information that may be helpful to you all, especially right now during this time. I also added a link to our practitioners resources page, where you can find resources that you can use to help students that may be thinking of going to college and trying to figure out how to pay for it, or students that are already in college and need help with repayment. This is a great resource page for students at all stages. And lastly, I've included the link to our new tool, the Paying for College tool, which we call GradPath. And this tool was created to help students turn their financial aid offer into a plan to pay for college. So check those out at your convenience. They are all embedded here in the presentation. And if you're wondering how you can get a copy of today's presentation, we will have it available on our website within a few weeks. So feel free to check our website, and that is consumerfinance.gov. And you can also email us and request if you have any additional questions or comments regarding today's presentation. Our email address is students@cfpb.gov. And it's here on the screen for you as well. All right, so now we will get into questions. And we did have a few questions in the chat. And if you have a question and you didn't get a chance to put it in the chat, feel free to raise your hand and we will go through and call on people or get your questions answered as efficiently as possible. So the first question was, someone wanted to know the name or the link to the interest survey that you mentioned, and that question is for Maisha. You mentioned the interest survey.
Yeah, so all of that resources can be found on getmyfuture.org. So on that site, there is, it asks the question, take an interest survey. I want to get the actual language. Give me a second. Find a job, and it gives you interest from there. So from that main page of those 9 boxes we saw, you can take the interest assessment from there. So it's not a specific link. It starts with the getmyfuture.org.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And I just added the getmyfuture.org link in the chat, so you can access that in the chat as well. Great, thank you, Maisha. The next question is, when is a good time to encourage students to begin using the College Scorecard tool? And I believe that question is for you, Brian.
So just to be clear, the question is, when is the appropriate time to use College Scorecard tool?
Yes, I think they might be asking in terms of high school students, maybe what grade or at what time during the school year, when should they start using that tool?
Yeah, I think it's never too early to kind of think about what types of schools and fields of study people are interested in. I don't know if I'd put a lower bound on that. In fact, I don't know if I put an upper bound on that too, because there are students that may want to transfer either outside of an institution that they're currently in or within programs that they're, within different fields of study if they're interested. So I would say never too early and never too late. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but I think that's kind of how we see the tool being used, like very early and even throughout when you're trying to figure out what to major in, for example.
Okay, great. I think that's helpful. And if you need more clarity on that, feel free to drop it in the chat or raise your hand. The next question is, could the One Stop app help young adults over 24? If not, is there a similar app for those 25 and older? And I believe that's for you, Maisha.
So yes, the app can help even us as adults because it uses the same ONET data and questions that you would get at a Myers-Briggs assessment. It can help any age group. Of course, it was catered towards young people under the age of 24. However, there was a site called mynextmove.org, and I'll put that in the chat. I want to make sure I have the right, I think I'm saying it. So mynextmove, hold on a second. This was created for adults. It also just takes you back to, again, careeronestop.org, and it also has assessments and stuff for adults. So I'm going to check that link one more time, but yes, it can be used for any age group. Adults have used it before. It has reliable information on colleges. It has nothing to do with age. It's just the front page, and some of the smaller resources were more youth-friendly.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maisha. I didn't add the mynextmove.org to the chat, but if you want to check confirm it, and then if you could drop it in the chat, that would be great. And then the next question is, does the Bureau handle scam complaints? And that is for you, Jill.
Right. I would highlight two resources there. So one important resource for scams is the Federal Trade Commission, also FTC.gov. Depending on the type of scam, the Bureau handles some and the FTC handles others. I am not extremely familiar with the details, so I would encourage you to look closely at the Bureau's complaint page that I mentioned, and also consider the FTC, depending on kind of the type or content of that scam.
Okay, great, thank you. And I added that resource to our chat room. And I'll move on to the next question. Because I am soon to start a job that does not withhold taxes. I wanted to know, is there any way I can have the IRS withdraw money every time I receive a paycheck? I will open that up to anyone that may want to take a stab at that one.
I would encourage you, we don't have a lot of specific details or that level of detail on tax issues in our Your Money, Your Goals toolkit, but I would encourage you to take a look at the irs.gov page, which has a few sections. Even on the front page, there's a video around estimated tax payments. That's a term you might want to look into closely, or making payments. And then if you use a combination of the IRS info and then perhaps some savings tools to plan ahead or estimate the amount you need to save, you might find some helpful tools in the savings section of the tools that I mentioned. But I don't know if others have suggestions on that as well.
Yes, the IRS has tools. I was trying to look for the form, but there actually is a form on the IRS, so you have additional taxes, to pay additional taxes throughout the year so that you don't, I don't think they withhold, but there's more information. There's the 1-800 number there you can call to get a specific detailed information, because they'll probably ask if state taxes are being withheld as well. So you might have to go through your state if that's not being withheld, as well as the IRS. So those are two separate calls, but there is resources on their site.
Great, thank you both for that. And then the next question is there an app that you can scan receipts in order to track your spending for keeping track for your records? I think that might be for you, Jill.
That is a great question. Yes, there are a variety of apps. I can't recommend any specific ones. I would encourage you to share information with others, or if others on the call have had good experiences, they may want to share with the group. But we don't recommend a particular app. We are certainly hearing the need for different app functions and ways to make our tools extra mobile friendly and useful for these variety of needs. So that's a really interesting question. So thank you.
All right, great. Thank you for that. And it looks like that is our last question. I want to thank you all again, all of our speakers, for participating in today's webinar. Thank you for the wealth of knowledge that you shared with us all. As I mentioned, today's presentation will be available on our website within the next few weeks, so feel free to check back to consumerfinance.gov at your convenience. And thank you all again. That's our presentation for today. Bye-bye.